Hey everybody, this is Guy with Survive. This is just a follow-up to the video from the other day. I had kind of tied a long tail on that kite, so I just wanted to go a little more in depth about surface grinding specifically and how that affected us and caused a lot of our delays. Looking back to 2013, this was our old product. As I said before, these were laser cut blanks, and then they were sent off for heat treatment and then surface grinding, bevel grinding, and that same service provider was doing the tumbling. We were noticing some quality issues in a few areas. One, these were run before, and with the same file, the next time they were run, there's a jimping cutout missing. So if you have one of these later fives, look close at that. Nobody ever called us out on it, but there is just a jimping cutout missing. I have no idea how that happened. Depending on the operator at the laser cutting facility, the tolerances on these could vary dramatically, both in the hole size, perimeter size. It's accurate, but it definitely has its limitations. So to a lesser extent, a lot of these we could see some burger grind lines, sometimes some surface grinding lines, and to dial those in, we launched the Survive Starter. I talked to our service providers and we were changing the process from laser cutting to water jet cut and then machine finished perimeters. To dial in the grinding, we started sending annealed blanks to our provider and they were grinding annealed and we would heat treat after. That made the, especially 3V, a lot easier to grind to get things a bit tighter with our panel heights. What happened though is the process at the grinding company didn't change when we moved from hardened blades to annealed blades. So the grinding was a lot more coarse and deep and showed through a lot more. So they only grind one way, and they told us that. Those are abrasives they're used to, they're comfortable with, so that was the process. They said that they would try for constant improvement as we went from run to run. So when we launched the Survive Starter, we had set out on a very particular trajectory. We assumed everyone had their place, so we invested in the things that we were going to do, which was to bring finishing in-house so that if there was something slightly off, we could fine tune it a bit before it was finished. When these were coming in addition to some of the smaller things, a lot of times we'd have rounded tips and stuff like that, which caused an uneven edge to regain that tip, and all the tolerance and fit and finish things I'd mentioned previously. So when the first batch of blades started arriving, we really didn't have a way to handle that effectively. We had invested in finishing equipment, assuming that the grinding company would grind and provide us finished blanks. As we went on run after run, we kept having the same style of issues with some mismatched bevels, heavy surface grinding lines, and I did the best I could at the time with the equipment I had. Used a flat platen, one on the TW, to just walk all these down one by one. And if you have a garage shop or something, you know that it can be time consuming, and then when you step up to a large run size, it takes a long time. Ultimately, we were told that we would have to accept a certain amount of loss each run and maybe buy our own surface grinder that's from the grinding company to get the level of finish that we were looking for that doesn't show through aggressively in a different style of finish. So handling that, moving down here with Millet, actually before we moved, we had sent a bunch of these blanks down. I mean, as an aside, that's a huge reason we had so many seconds. We got so behind fixing first that it just, with delay after delay after delay, it just wasn't worth it to continue trying to do things that way. So we just finished them. They were what they were, and we got them out the door. In this next little video segment, we're going to talk about how we first started handling this and then the investments we made to ultimately minimize and eliminate the issues as we moved all production here. where things became really problematic trying to scale up production and receiving completely finished blanks is they're both surface ground and bevel ground. If there had been some way to get these right after surface grinding, we could have better handled it. But once they're bevel ground, to maintain the evenness from side to side, you have to be really careful on each side with cleanup. So coming from our service provider, there's still a tolerance. Each of the blades, they varied, I think, up to 4 or 5 thou in thickness. So first, those need to be grouped by thickness within a couple tenths of one another, so that when we put these on the table, you're not hitting high blades and low blades and high blades. We can remove a minimum amount of material from the knives by grouping them by size. So what we did here, coming down here and getting help from Millet, was using their old surface grinder here. You can see it's a pretty small table, and it limits the amount of blades. Even with this GS05, you can't fit very many within the magnetized surface. So what happens first is, in larger batches, what can fit on here and is a similar size, you grind one side really lightly. It's about a thou and a half that took those grind lines out that were in there. And then you flip those and take the same amount off until you achieve cleanup. From there, it's really an individual process. And this was a very, very time-consuming process, especially working this in with production. You put these on here and you've got to fine-tune the bevel heights by removing a tiny bit of material. It's roughly 12, 14 thou of bevel height for every thou you take off. So to get those all matched up, it's one by one, and you're flipping it back and forth until you get a good finish and you have a even bevel height from side to side. So with all the production stuff that's going on, it just took a long time to work those through. You know, to the people who say just throw people at it or hire more people, Millet actually did us a huge favor by doing this. It cost more in employees' time to do than what it was worth. There's just a lot more time in trying to clean these up once the bevels are ground, and it's not a cost-effective process. We lost a lot. So knowing where we're heading after this, and knowing we were staying here and sort of becoming one team, integrating the two companies and functionally being one unit, we made an investment in a much larger surface grinder, which we're going to go take a look at now. So looking ahead and wanting to improve production capacity and our efficiency just as a shop as a whole, we invested in this monster. It's much newer, it's much more accurate, and we can get really nice finishes with this machine. You can see here the GS05 for scale. Looking at the old surface grinder, it's much smaller, and with blades like the GS012, we fit about 5 at a time, and it takes a long time to work through things like that. On this machine, we can fit 18 in one table load of the GS012. So things are much more efficient. And while this isn't as quick as something like a double disc or a Blanchard grinder, we are able to load up a table and have the person walk away to do other things. So this thing can run until it's done, and then we can come back and pay attention to it, where the double disc and the Blanchard grinders, you only get one or a few parts at a time, and somebody has to mind it pretty constantly. So yeah, I just thought all this was worth mentioning, and I just wanted to show you guys where we're moving from here. Anyway, guess that's about it for now. I will start dripping these videos out at a more sedate pace from now on, and I don't know, hope to talk to you guys again soon. Thanks.